time, ladies and gentlemen, for day 2 of HGC Korea. For phase 2, my name is Wolf. With me is G-Clef, as always. We are excited to bring you guys coverage of the Korean League here going into our second day. We had a lot of exciting matches yesterday where we saw new players. We saw the new team, of course, coming in with RRR. So both BlossoM and RRR will be playing again today.
That's right.
And we'll see if they can perform a little bit better than what we saw yesterday, especially in terms of RRR.
Yeah, because they were up against a very strong team yesterday. Also, they will be up against Miracle later today in match number 2. So that's something exciting. But before that, we have Tempest waiting. The new roster Tempest, of course, having Honkono back to his old team. Back in was also Tempest Storm back in the days. About a year ago, right? Because
yeah,
it was right after they won the summer.
Mid-season. Yeah, yes. Exactly. So, or not mid-season, but the Summer Global Championship.
Yeah, back then.
Different name back then. Same tournament at DreamHack, of course. Same timeline. So, excited to see him back on Tempest. We'll see if that affects MVP Miracle especially as well. Not having Honkono as their main tank player anymore. We'll see how they adjust there. Darvish, of course, obviously moving away into Raven. So having Jaehyun on Miracle, that's going to be something we're going to be seeing a little bit later on. I feel like RRR was tested pretty hard when they had to face Mighty, the top 3 team from last season. And now, of course, going into tonight, they're going to be facing off against Miracle. Definitely wasn't as strong of a team. So perhaps there's a chance they take this series. Perhaps even at least a game or 2. So definitely going to be a closer matchup than yesterday. Of course, this is our format, and we're going all the way until July 23rd for this one. I'm going to keep making fun of the TH there until until someone corrects that typo.
I sent it yesterday, and it's going to be fixed.
Okay, cool.
Hopefully by overnight tonight. But I saw some NA matches and EU matches, and it seems to be Diva is rising up on top a little more, I believe. 6 Divas overnight and 5 wins was just one lose, and we did not see any Divas in play yesterday. Maybe today in Korea we'll see some Diva in action also.
Yeah, the Koreans are studying the European meta especially. I think there's going to be some adaptations made throughout the tournament, just considering that EU are the top dogs now as they defeated Korea. That was an EU versus EU finals at the mid-season brawl. So definitely some studying needs to be done. A lot of restructuring, rebuilding going on in the Korean scene. So a lot of players moving out of Heroes of the Storm and new rising players look very promising to take their places.
Yes.
Gondar
yes,
is the one we were talking about yesterday.
Gondar
brought the hype for the Western fans as well as the Korean fans, and he will be playing yet again today, in fact, in our opening match. So excited to see his performances on the main tanks again. His ETC was perhaps the most spectacular, but we saw good Stitches play.
That's right.
And also that Onubrak. You give him the S-tier warrior, and he is going to do work.
And I've also got word that BlossoM is going to try their best to actually beat Tempest today because they're looking for that Eastern Clash, going into Eastern Clash. And if they lose today, it'll be very hard because Tempest will likely to be in top 3. So I've got words that they're going to try some very funky, surprising picks. We're likely going to see something crazy today. They didn't tell me either, but maybe we're going to see something crazy. Not Gaslow, nothing murky, but maybe something like Nova 02 coming out.
Yeah, definitely a possibility, right? So here are, of course, our standings. We saw only 2 matches yesterday. These things really won't matter until after week 3, where all teams have played about 2 matches at least. So don't look into these too much just yet, as obviously Mighty and BlossoM are tied for first place. PogChamp, not real. Just only winning 1 best of 5 each. So it's a little bit early on in the season, so not really much to take away from this, as some of the majority of our top-tier teams have not played. Only Mighty, who was top 3, who played their first match. It was a favored one for them. Here's today's matchups. As we already said, Tempest will face off against BlossoM. I think that's the highlight for most this evening because, you know, we saw Tempest's roster changes, BlossoM bringing Gondar in. He looks really, really strong right now. And then RRR against Miracle. Miracle not as strong of a team as Mighty is, so RRR definitely has a better chance, and they've learned a lot. I feel like perhaps gotten some nerves out of the way playing their first HGC matches.
That's right. They had some trouble with the teamwork, and also overextension was the biggest mistakes they have committed yesterday. Maybe they were a little bit nervous being in OGN for the first time. It's always nervous to be playing on competitive for the first time in your life, so maybe they got some nerves off yesterday. Maybe today they can show better performances against MVP Miracle.
Now this is going to be a pretty I feel like today's matches should be at least a little bit more competitive than yesterday's. Yesterday we saw a few beatdowns, but before we talk about it any further, let's take a look at the new Tempest.
안녕하세요. 템페스트에서 지원가를 맡고 있는 하이드라고 합니다.
올라운더 역할 맡고 있는 락다운이라고 합니다.
이번에 템페스트로 이적하게 된 홍코노입니다.
모던 라이프 선수와 덕석 선수가 나가고 홍코노 선수와 해파리 선수가 들어오게 되었는데 좀 더 공격적인 모습으로 다시 돌아올 것 같습니다. 홍코노 선수는 이제 작년에 같이 했었던 선수라서 딱히 얘기할 게 없을 것 같고 해파리 선수는 잘한다고 생각했는데 이번에 같이 하게 돼서 좀 많이 기쁘네요.
저와 해파리가 들어오면서 공격적인 부분이 엄청 강해졌고 어떻게 보면 틈이 되게 많지만 이걸 잘 메꾸면 더 강한 팀이 된 것 같아요.
템페스트라는 팀 자체가 이제 선수들이 전부 다 올라운더 성향을 좀 많이 띠고 있기 때문에 그런 유동적인 부분은 장점이 될 수 있다고 생각합니다.
저는 제가 이제 인터뷰할 때 우승 못하면 자른다고 알고 있었고 또 새로운 각오 그런 느낌도 있었고 게임하는데 지장이 있는 것 같아서 그쪽으로 자꾸 신경이 쓰이니까 그래서 자르게 된 것 같아요. 이스턴 클래시 진출하는 것과 블리즈컨 진출하는 게 목표입니다. 최대한 많은 경기 할 수 있게 열심히 해보겠습니다.
좀 더 열심히 노력하고 강력한 모습으로 최선을 다해서 우승할 수 있도록 노력하겠습니다.
항상 저희 팀을 응원해주시는 팬들 여러분께 많은 감사의 말씀 전하고 싶고 이번 시즌도 더 재밌는 경기 보여드리도록 노력 많이 하겠습니다.
Here they are, the reformed Tempest. The team, you could argue, definitely got a lot stronger with the addition of Honkono, but you have to remember the loss of Duck Duck, who definitely was one of the staples of the team. Honkono left the team first, of course, moving into MVP Miracle with longtime duo partner in terms of front lines, Dami. They worked together for a long first phase of this season, but didn't feel like the synergy ever really came as good as it was on the old Tempest. Now Honkono's with Lockdown and Hyde back in that old roster. Sign, of course, an H82 moving in. Sign with more experience with the newly made Tempest. And H82, even though he's never played a televised match with this Tempest roster just now, he's already listed here by King as the key player. Someone we knew to be the star player of Raven. You and I predicted long ago this player was definitely going to a better team after the first phase. He was just much better than his teammates, and he's risen up now to a top 4 team on Tempest. This team, the global champions of summer 2016. Perhaps with this new roster, they can outperform their performances in phase 1.
That's right. Whenever the Korean players pick top 5 melee assassins or the super players, H82 was always within the top 5, along with Kyota and Rich and Dami and so on. So it was very expected for him to climb up from Raven to other team. But with this synergy, with Honkono coming in, they lost Dami with Honkono. Of course, Dami is still staying in MVP Miracle. But with H82, I think their roster looks amazing right now. And with the perfect setup, with much more practices, and from what we're going to see today, I think we can get a hint of what they're going to be by the end of the season.
I would have to agree. Remember, by the way, guys, Honkono is not going to be playing main tank as he was in the past.
That's
He's going to be playing more like he did when he used the ID Evergreen and Raverlord back in the day on Young Boss. And the team that then became Tempest, DSA, he's going to be playing range DPS. He's going to be the Flex, the Falstad, perhaps the Gul'dan, these types of heroes, perhaps the Dahaka occasionally, Tassadar, these types of secondary supports or secondary DPSs. So not going to be seeing any frontline tanking. That job is still reserved to Sign. Will be the main tanker as he was in the previous phase. H82 will be the melee flex. Let's hear from BlossoM.
안녕하세요. 블라썸에서 메인 탱커를 맡고 있는 곤다르라고 합니다.
블라썸에서 지원가 포지션을 맡고 있는 위즈 선수라고 합니다.
블라썸으로 이적해서 서브탱을 똑같이 맡고 있는 모던 라이프입니다.
아직 대회를 안 해서 그런지 긴장되는 건 없고 설레고 재밌을 것 같고 그래요.
일단 예전보다 연계가 더 좋아졌고 브리핑이 훨씬 더 많아져가지고 팀의 화합이 더 좋아진 것 같아요.
서로 재밌게 게임을 하는 것도 있고 멤버가 바뀐 이후로 협동이 더 잘 되는 것도 있고 팀워크가 좋은 것 같아요.
게임을 다 잘 해요. 네. 특히 곤다르한테 좀 많이 관심을 가지고 있어요.
예, 처음이에요.
네? 아니요.
그 친구가 팀 게임이 좀 경험이 적다 보니까 아직 좀 미흡한 부분이 좀 있긴 한데 아직 얘가 젊고 패기가 있는 친구라서 충분히 잘할 수 있을 거라고 믿고 있어요.
블라썸한테 승강전 진 거는 좀 메타가 가장 컸던 것 같아요.
메타가 가장 컸던 것 같아요.
사람마다 생각은 다르니까요. 그렇게 생각할 수 있죠.
그냥 그런가 보다 해요. RRR은 그냥 별로 개의치 않아요.
지금 상대 전적이 4대 0인데 10대 0으로 만들어 드리겠습니다. 저희 팀의 목표는 세계대회에 나가는 거.
지금 MVP 블랙 빼고는 거의 다 비벼볼 만하다 생각하고 있어요.
이번에 새로 탱커를 맡게 돼서 들어왔는데 세체땡이라는 소리를 들을 수 있게 노력하도록 하겠습니다.
전 시즌에는 대회에서도 긴장을 너무 많이 해가지고 좋은 모습을 못 보여드렸는데 이제 그걸 극복해내고 열심히 해서 좋은 모습 보여드릴 수 있도록 열심히 하겠습니다.
So that was, of course, the interview we saw yesterday where they were focused mostly on talking about RRR, but if you missed yesterday's match, as you can see the confidence levels of BlossoM going into the season. All focus on Gondar, of course. I was trying to bring my Lord of the Rings in. Gondar here. So he's the new main tank for the team, and Scarlet, of course, moved out. Modern Life came in, and you've got this roster that looks very strong on paper, but I really feel like the hype levels for Gondar going into this were high, and he lived up to expectations yesterday. Well, we have to put an asterisk on that because remember, they played against Raven yesterday, longtime rivals. The only team that they consistently were able to beat last season, in fact, was Raven. And now that they're facing a much stronger team, a top 4 team in Tempest, he's going to be tested a little bit more.
Yeah, today will be the real challenge. Yesterday was a little bit of a, I guess, a warm-up for him and to get adjusted to OGN stage, but with also Wiz going on to support, his cleanses were on point pretty quickly whenever his teammate were CC, so I think Wiz made a very good role change into a support. I think the team is now completed with this roster, and as you can see with the key player, his Stitches and Nubarak ETC only played one of each, but just from those games, we could tell that he's a really strong warrior player.
Well, I mean, you don't really look at these stats all too often because a lot of the time they're really insignificant, but as main tank, he's contributing to nearly 1/5 of the team's damage. As a tank player, obviously tanks don't do as much damage as assassins, so already really pulling his weight in terms of damage. We saw his Nubarak specifically really being the big carry. The ETC play, as unusual as it was still very good. His timings of his mosh pits, terrifying. Remember, another storyline in all of this is that Modern Life, now known as Mora, will have to play against his former team. Rumor has it, didn't really feel happy with his performances, so he moved into another team. The roster shufflings on Tempest, again, kind of centered around him leaving the team. And so now he has a chance to defeat his former teammates. Or for Tempest to prove why they've reshuffled their roster here. So for Modern Life, the pressure is on.
Yep, and moving on to the Battleground. Of course, BlossoM's favorite map, favorite Battleground is the Spider Queen, so it's banned from Tempest side. And also, BlossoM banned Battlefield. That leaves us Braxis and Warhead Junction open. I think this was what BlossoM was talking about.
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to show us something unusual. Will be Tempest with the first map pick of Sky Temple. We'd always have to, highlight the Duck potential Probius before, but now that he's no longer part of the team and has since retired from professional play, we are going to have a different Tempest Sky Temple pick. So perhaps the ideas are still there. The lockdown and hide still remaining as heavy shot callers and drafters on the team, so they might still try to force Honkono to play that Probius here. And remember, with Honkono shifting now into ranged DPS, he hasn't played it since the 2015 season. So that's 2 years of main tank play coming out from Honkono. How well will he do on ranged flex is a big question going into Tempest's new roster. People are hyped about the Honkono move back to Tempest, but it's not the Honkono that you love and knew back from Sweden and back from 2016 summer.
That's right. Also, Falstad is kind of out of the meta. It's a lot less picked compared to before, and used to be like one of the most contested picks, especially in Korea. And now with this meta, not any of the teams are really picking Falstad at all. And let's go into the draft. Tehaka, Teasadar, Instaban, and Uther picked already from BlossoM's side. Of course, Uther is just top tier right now.
So the Tassadar here, somewhat of a throwaway ban for Tempest. They want to get some sort of combination here, leaving Uther open. At the end of the season, where Tempest actually was unable to qualify for the mid-season brawl, and in fact actually lost to Mighty there, they were prioritizing a lot of Stitches, Malfurion, but we're in a new meta now, and the Anubarak being available means that you have to prioritize that over the Malfurion here. Leading into the Genji pick. Very likely we'll see BlossoM take the ban onto Malfurion in this next ban phase. Vala, an unusual pick here with solo support Uther.
I feel a double support coming
there we
in.
go.
There we go!
So this is very L5-esque from what we saw back in the mid-season brawl, but again, it was mostly used with the old Trinity with Tassadar, not so much Uther because he was very rarely available. The most banned hero, of course, in mid-season brawl. So different kind of Trinity here, G-Club.
And talking about mid-season brawl, this is full China. They're going full China. They have Vala, Uther, and Ariel, even though Tassadar is banned. Double support, that's the way to go. One of the games I remember, they didn't even have tank. They had 2 DPSs, double support, and maybe an Avatar or something. So BlossoM is really adapting all the other regions, and I'm pretty sure they also watched all the matches from MSB. They really adapted. Let's see how well they can actually execute this, because Chinese teams, they're used to teamfight. They're used to that kind of style, but Korean teams, they are not.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. That's why I was pointing towards L5's way of drafting this with SCSC on the Vala, but an interesting situation they're presented with now. They got everything what they wanted to protect Vala, to empower her Divine Shield, Aegis, the ability to build up the hope on Ariel with a very quick DPS of Vala that almost lived through anything with the protection of the armor from Uther. You're definitely considering the Malfurion ban, but I think you're also considering the Li Ming ban here for the burst damage that could eventually break through. They will take away the Illidan, interestingly enough. So removing that here.
Okay, they want Tempest to actually play Falstad instead. They removed the Haka, which is global, and Illidan could be global, as we saw yesterday in lots of other games in all regions. And Falstad is one of the weaker picks. It didn't get nerfed, it didn't get any changes, it's just the other picks. It's so weak against all the dives like Genji or Illidan coming in. It's also Zeratul, so that's why we don't see as much Falstad, even though it has global.
I think that the Illidan ban is mostly the global removal, as you mentioned, because when you think about what Illidan can provide in a team fight, it's longer, slower damage. It's not really the burst damage, it's more sustained damage, which would eventually be out-healed. Hunt coming in as a stun would be quite nice, but I think it's really about the global pressure he has on the faraway top lane on this battleground, where he can oftentimes secure you 10 when you go for that second tempo phase. It's in the bot, he split pushes top, and because they don't have Dahaka here, they just don't want that edge to be given to Tempest. Tempest's response is pretty unusual with the Zeratul. They have heavy dive, and BlossoM is going to have to be very careful with the positioning. Now they get Tyrael with this.
Okay, I like the Stitches pick too, because if Tempest had Stitches with Malfurion, they could have had one of the best drafts against this Vala, which was a very big counter to Chinese teams back in mid-season brawl. I keep on going back to mid-season brawl because we are in the same patch, and we do see a similar draft here from BlossoM.
Yeah, it's until we really have a few weeks of games where the patch changes significantly. Then until that moment, we basically have to reference that, especially with teams in their opening matches like Tempest, for example. So their final pick here is likely to be the tank. Arthas removed, Stitches taken away, Tyrael taken away. Not a lot of great choices here for Tempest. They might be forced into either the Muradin or Johanna. Johanna's blinds can be quite effective against Vala's, if she just goes for a normal auto attack build. It's not necessarily what we're going to be seeing, but pretty likely coming out from BlossoM. So I like her over the Muradin, but Muradin's mobility on this map is quite strong as well.
We have H82 now. Oh, I was hoping for Artanis, but no, not this time. And Falstad is actually the answer because they do have Genji already. So Li Ming is okay, but I guess they wanted a little bit more global.
Well, this also, I think, is pretty telling of Hong Kono perhaps being forced to play, the Falstad here, not as comfortable on the secondary tank, or maybe even not as comfortable on, say, if he was going to be playing the Genji. So Gets put into the Falstad here, very likely as we go into game number 1. He's got a smile on his face, tells me he's happy about the draft. It's going to be that solo Anubruk, heavy dive, and the global priority here for Tempest. Very hard to say who won this draft. We're going to go into game number 1 right now on Tomb of the Spider Queen. So there is a sound issue, so we immediately paused the game, as you can see there at the top.
Actually, we get to talk about the draft a little bit more, which I would like to.
Sure. Whose draft do you like more?
I like BlossoM. I think they really outsmarted Tempest, and also taking the stitches away from the last pick that was available for Tempest. I think they were looking for that stitches with the Malfurion pair up, and they took that away. They do have a lot of strong tanks in the front line, also, which makes room for Vala to do just free damage with the double supports coming into the back line.
Yeah. I think that when you look at the draft of BlossoM with the protection of Vala, it's a very terrifying draft. It's very scary to think about what that draft can accomplish, even though it's a very basic draft. I think the game will be decided based on the execution of Tempest Dive with the Genji, the Zeratul, the Void Prisons into Twilight Dreams. These are going to be the big moments. Falstad's Gusts, for example, to try to isolate targets. Part of the reason why Falstad's taken here is because of Honkono's hero pool. Again, assuming he took it. If he didn't, then we're going to have to talk about a lot of different things when we get into this first game. But the other reasons why are the map, the global presence, the top lane pressure. There's no strong soul laner or split pusher on the side of BlossoM. And with the Aegis coming out, you can sometimes gust that target immediately, and everyone else is blown away. The target who comes out of the Aegis is just simply left there alone.
That's right. That's what I do with Falstad exactly. When the Aegis is there, you just win everyone away, so that's just left alone. It's like having Stitches just hooking one instead of you push everyone else. I believe it's going to be Lockdown most likely onto Falstad, which was one of his favorite hero, along with Li Ming and Gul'dan, and sometimes even Kel'Thas.
So you think Honkono's going to be playing Genji?
I think either one, Genji or Zeratul. He used to play one of those crazy picks, like back in last summer, like he played Asmodan in one of the games. He's always a character. He wants all the attention, and he loves to show off what he can do on the competitive scene. So I think he might have actually went for Genji.
We'll see, because I think if he's going for Genji, I can be somewhat okay with it, because we have seen range flex players play the Genji in terms of their position, right? I'm a range flex, so I have to play a range flex hero. And if you look at Lockdown's history, obviously he's the best Falstad on the team.
That's right.
But he is also the best carry on the team, with Duck now leaving the team, Honkono replacing him. It feels like if Lockdown is playing this, you should play the higher skill cap hero, which in this case most would argue would be the Genji. You put Honkono on the split push hero, which kind of he did a few times with Tahaka, and that was the Falstad's hero that he played a lot back in the day when he was on Young Boss, etc., and ASD. So you can look at these things, and there are definitely arguments for Lockdown definitely being the best Falstad on the team.
Right.
But if you are prioritizing the Genji in your draft, you put Honkono on him, who's never played a televised match of Genji. That's like, I feel that's a little bit worrisome. If you put Honkono on the tank, then I think you have internal problems on the team and where you're putting your players on their positions. You know what I'm saying? So that it's like, okay, well, Honkono's good at tank, but now what's Sign playing? And it gets all messy.
Yeah, I think I follow you a little bit more, and he was playing lots of Dehaka back in MVP Miracle too.
Yeah.
So he playing the global role as Dehaka and Falstad kind of fits in together. And on the other side, BlossoM, the real problem or the real thing is it going to be Divine Storm? I think Divine Storm is actually we saw lots of Divine Storm back in other regions and back in MSB also to counter all the dives coming in. When they come in, they will be CC'd right away and get stunned. Few of the chain up stuns or CCs, they will just melt right away.
Yeah,
deleted right there.
They already have the protection of Aegis, so it's not necessarily required to get Divine Shield. I would agree with you. It does give Vol that extra protection to build more hope, so There's definitely arguments for both. I'm kind of leaning towards Divine Shield, but I can see what you're saying, especially for the extra damage and the CC that can help to lock down these really mobile targets like the Genji, like the Zeratul you're talking about. Looks like we're back into this one. Let's see who it is. Honkono is on the Genji. Good call, G-Clef. Hyde on Malfurion. H82 will be on the Zeratul. And of course, that will put Sign on a Nubarak. And Hyde, of course, coming on to Malfurion.
And in red, BlossoM Wiz on Ariel, Gondar on Stitches, and no chat on Uther actually. I was wondering who's going to be on Uther, and it's no chat. Well, he's even looking for that support spot.
Really excited to see how well Honkono plays Genji here. This will be his first match ever played on the hero, so we don't know exactly what he is capable of. Genji, of course, a top-tier hero that he's had a lot of time to prepare for since they didn't go to mid-season brawl, and he knew he was going to have this position swap for a long time. So I like that he is going to at least take this challenge now against BlossoM, against perhaps a tougher opponent later down the road. Making his leap into professional play on Genji might be a little bit tougher. So we have one of the best fall stats in the world here on Lockdown. He was the best back in summer. And Modern Life's going to be up here in the solo. Going to kind of slowly wean away from calling him that. Just want to make sure you guys know who it is. That's why I refer to him as Modern Life. Yeah.
Mora is his IGN now, and going against his former teammate, Lockdown on the top lane, as he is harassing a lot actually. Good trade. So, not just from the draft, but these role switches along with Honkono going on Genji, and also no chat on Luther. This is way too exciting already. Let's see how this comes out.
This is going to get a bit nuts. Okay, so the Soul Aid trade there forced out the healing fountain to be used already. He's actually diving in onto Falstad in the top lane once again, but I think this is what Lockdown wants. He's actually trying to bait him into a trade here. Will force the well to be used again. Lockdown wanted Mora, I think, to actually go all the way into the towers there so that he could actually secure the kill, but Mora didn't take the bait. I'm talking about, of course, the first time they exchanged. H82 is looking for the punish play, but as he is called missing, Mora's just going to stay behind that wall right now.
And Mora learned this lesson from Tempest, especially with Ragnarok, not to step over the line of boundaries to get himself killed. So he's still got that in his touch right now.
Hook nearly connects with Hyde there. Good positioning from the Tempest support will actually prevent him from dying immediately. Sign actually gets a decent amount of CC here, but they're not able to break through. H82 will currently solo the top lane, though, and the power of the wave clear here on Falstad with the global is going to give them a little bit of extra value. They take a slight EXP lead from this. This forces Mora to go back into lane.
Yep, and they're just going to soak up a little bit more EXP. They did get a lot more tempo shots, too, along with that. Just a slight EXP need, but with that, BlossoM actually taking the camp a little bit earlier than Tempest. They want to pressure this top as Mora is looking for his life. He does have Aldruins though. Let's see if he can actually...
I mean, he's stun chained here now. He will get away temporarily. The Vorpal the Blade will allow him to teleport over and secure the kill though on the other side of the fort. Good mechanical plays coming out here already on H82's debut Tempest game. And will help them secure an even deeper EXP lead.
They did get the fort too, so that's a lot of pressure. But instead, BlossoM is looking for a longer game. They want to pressure this bot lane a little bit more, possibly even take down the fountain if they can before the second tempo phase starts.
Siege giant push here is really annoying, but I don't think they'll get the fountain. Forces a big reaction here out of Tempest. The top fort being eliminated already, though, is a big deal. That's a huge amount of pressure that's going to be on the top lane. It's going to make it tougher for Falstad to actually sit up there and pressure the fort itself or to grab EXP. Soaking will be more difficult, but eventually will help them work onto the keep wall. So nice early advantage here as we move into the second temple phase. But that's where Falstad will be able to sit up there for a long amount of time to push that wave to the extra mile. There's no hero on BlossoM that can punish a split-pushing Falstad as well. Going back to the draft, the more you think about the Falstad pick, it starts to make a lot of sense. We don't really expect a Falstad because he's kind of quote-unquote out of the meta, but in this specific situation for the map, to give props to the drafting here of Tempest because it's going to give Lockdown a lot of opportunities in the next few moments here.
That's right, but the only thing I would worry about from Tempest's side is, especially for Malfurion or Falstad, is the hook coming out from Stitches. They do have some pairing up with Uther's Hammer and some CCs available with Detainment Strike from Aureo. If it hits the wall right after, you can change the CC, and by that time, you will be blown up from all the Vala damage and also Tyrael coming in later on. So that's one thing to worry about for Tempest's side, but from day one, we have really not seen the greatest hooks like JPL.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, man. JPL is the best Stitches, so...
I love the Stitches. She's the best, I gotta say.
Well, you want to play like JPL, you got to practice as hard as JPL, and maybe we're just not there yet, but Stitches play in Korea has always been pretty rare until the end of last season, and making a bit of a comeback, obviously, after the Europeans taught the Koreans how to play over a mid-season brawl. So anyway, the top push is exactly what I'm talking about. You have the split with the Falstad up in the top lane with the Mercenary camp. The timing of this works really well. So as they're, of course, grouping up to look for the tribute, or sorry, the temple to the bottom, so when this push comes into play, Mora actually comes up to be aggressive and try to trade against Lockdown. That's why HA2 was looking for the punish play, but it looks like it's not really necessary. So this ends up being a fairly even trade for the two, as it was a full tempo for BlossoM, and then the damaged keep wall at the top. Going to be a slight EXP lead for Tempest. They will get 10 faster. Dragon Blade will be the choice of Heroic. X-Strike seems to be kind of out now. Nice hook here, but no follow-up.
But get some damage, and they cut off the EXP, but the only problem that I was thinking from BlossoM's side is they are very pressured on top. Their second wall is almost a lot, like I guess half of the HP is already gone, and they have to really get a pick to come back into this game. Also Falstad, Mighty Gust. The reason why Mighty Gust is so powerful is because of that boss control. When you have to fight for that boss after 10, after 13, if you have the Gust, and unless you ages yourself and have the Sanctification perfectly on all 5 of your members, it makes it really hard to team fight all together. So I'm pretty sure Tempest is going to use that as their advantage.
I see what you're saying for sure. I like the idea though to have this extra level of protection, because the Divine Storm can be amazing, right? But I feel like it's based on positional mistakes from Tempest as to why they would use that one. The Divine Shield is just going to give that extra protection or the potential carry. Okay, here's the first gust of the game as Lockdown tries to escape. The stun will hit him though. The hook is real, and now there's a Gorge. Void Prison is going off here, but it doesn't matter. Sanctification used right afterwards. But the key factor here is BlossoM is on the chase. Detainment Strike doesn't hit H82, but he's going to get taken out anyways. Dudu with the damage. You didn't talk about this too much, but Dudu started his career with a big bang, bringing Vala kind of back into the meta back in 2016. It was known to be by many top 3 Vala in Korea. And so when he's the Vala that has the triple support protection, I say triple support, of course, referring to Tyrael's support abilities, the shields, the sanctification, the movement speed, plus Auriel and Uther. He's the Vala you want to have, so that was kind of a botched engage by Tempest, and it was all because of Lockdown's positioning mistake, but you have to give credit for BlossoM's rotation.
That team fight was, I gotta say, it was a bit weird. The timing of the Gust, the Void Prison, and the Sanctification drop. I wasn't really expecting the Sanctification at least.
Okay, well here's a good Twilight Dream with the Gust this time. That wasn't a defensive Gust. Aegis is used here, but it's not going to matter. Auriel's taken out herself right after she self-casts it immediately. This will give BlossoM the top temple, the final shots here, but it's going to cost them 3 members, and this will be boss opportunities for Tempest. They're going to go in here and take it immediately.
When Uther was away, they should have been a little bit more careful when they know Uther is away. No heal, no second healing, of course. Auriel does heal, but Divine Shield is what makes their team come a lot safer. And with this, Tempest is going to have a massive lead with this boss for them now.
Yeah, so this is going to push down through the fort. Obviously, the soul lane on this map doesn't pressure the bot lane, or excuse me, boss lane, so there's no way the fort could have been down anyways, but I'm going to go ahead and work on that now with the temple kind of giving the assistance here. So it goes through the fort very, very quickly. Will damage the keep wall, but forces the reaction, forces the rotation of BlossoM down to deal with this, which gives the opportunity now for Lockdown to get that free soak in the top lane completely unharassed.
That's right, and top lane happens to be the one that was the most push out of all 3 lanes, and Falstad with the global, Tempest will now lead almost about 3/4 of a level, but with Falstad they're gonna make the gap even wider with that. Falstad will keep on pushing, and Mora will have to deal with that every single time, and when they do not have the Sanctification, Falstad can always fly in to join into teamfight and make it into a 5v4.
Okay, Mora is going to get caught here by this not party bush, but bush duo, if you will, and will actually be picked off as HA2 was a swift rotation in. Frustration you can feel in the control there of Mora as he just expires without moving. We'll see the hook gorge though onto HA2. Gondar trying to make a play here, but unfortunately immediately the dash comes out, and that is not going to be the kill they were looking for. Couldn't get the Uther stun to follow up.
Yeah, the cocoon use was pretty great from Sign to not just to make sure that Genji can just swift strike away from that dangerous jump, not letting him do the hammer to follow up with the CC. Perfect execution by Tempest just now.
Well, the top lane push comes in. They decided to prioritize the Merc camp in the top lane to try to push this keep wall down. They were successful. They also took away the keep's kind of sentry cannon tower's ammunition away. Instead of defending the bot red temple, instead of contesting that, the boss damaged the bot keep wall. So they got a few extra macro edges in this game just by walking away when BlossoM decided to commit to get the last shots of that bot temple. So I feel like in terms of rotations, obviously Tempest has this this global hero and fall set for the split pushing to set up a few cool ganks, and the map awareness just seems to be better overall. A bit wasteful. We saw that sanctification used in the bush as well. These are just small mistakes on the side of BlossoM, but it feels like they're all adding up.
Yeah, is it me or do they feel like they're rushing a lot? I feel like they're rushing way too much. They're not too behind in the game right now. They can still make a comeback very easily by having a good hook. Maybe I thought gorging a Genji was not really too necessary at that point. I know they need to make a comeback, but you're eating a Genji and you can just dash away anytime.
Yeah, and remember too, this draft for BlossoM is designed to team fight and or get the picks right, but that wasn't the good hook target there. And with this, when you're looking to team fight non-stop and Tempest just out-rotates you and avoids team fighting and just gets objectives or gets big wave pushes, gets structural damage done in lanes instead of fighting you, the Vola draft that we've seen so often on Infernal Shrines, for example, we've seen it on Battlefield of Eternity, doesn't feel very effective on a map that's this size when Tempest just continues to run circles around BlossoM. So they're going to trade these yet again, these temples, but the structural lead is massively in favor of Tempest, so any trade is good for them as they approach level 20.
That's right, and Tempest still has a full level lead now, and Gondar is looking for those hooks. He's been pretty okay with the hooks, but the follow-ups was not real, and of course Sign cocooning Uther just now was absolutely perfect. Executed so well that make sure to keep his teammates alive. Sign, we could not really see like super plays coming out from Anubarak today yet, but he's been keeping his teammates safe, always ceasing at the right moment.
Okay, this is going to be the Hong Kong bait hook. Nope, not going to be the case. Gondar is looking for that hook potential, but fortunately so much mobility on like basically every hero except Malfurion. The blink, the dash, the burrow charge, the barrel roll. I mean, you name it, everyone he could hook has an escape. So the Stitches pick mostly a denial, like you said, against the root combo with Malfurion, but it just isn't working out too much for them. The hooks have been accurate, but because of the composition and the escape tools for the kits of Tempest heroes, can't get those picks they're looking for. Well, you see the party bush up to the north a little bit here as they actually look for maybe a pick or a rotation. They're going to see them show in bot here, and then they're just going to go push that in to try to get the keep wall, or rather to maybe even damage the keep. Unfortunately, not very successful there on the top.
Zeratul was looking for a bait along with Malfurion right next to him, but of course BlossoM not really having any forts or the structures next to them. So be careful, and Mora did lose his life once when he was trying to make his rotations up. So they are all moving in together now, maybe even trying to invade into the camp here.
Well, they're just realizing this comp has to team fight, and so they're just going to roam as 5 to look for picks. They invade the camp.
Oh, look at this, and they saw their rotations, big rotation. Actually, not going for the boss though.
Well, they just don't know for sure where BlossoM is, so to go for the boss would be a bit risky. They've started to figure it out now, and they're going to head over here. Remember, even if they don't stop this invade, they force the retreat here for BlossoM. They stop Hearths as well. While Lockdown is just split pushing for this keep now. That's what I was talking about before. They prepped this wave to come in. He just stayed up in the top lane, and he could actually fly away. Here he goes. He gets hooked, though, and that's going to be the Gorge. A little bit greedy here. Now going to get slowed by the keep. Does drop the gust down. Looks for the flight, and we barely see him get away. Doesn't have enough DOT Stitches there to finish him off, but could have been a little bit less greedy, but I gotta give him props. He got away.
He got away, and meanwhile, they got all the tempo shots, half of the tempo shots. The camp is pushing for BlossoM's side, but all they need to do is wait for 20. That's exactly what they have been doing, and they want a team fight after hitting 20, and they just hit 20. This is the time. And they're coming out from the side, looking for the perfect Void Prison angle.
It's going to be a big Dragon Blade here, too. Into the Void Prison, though, unfortunately. We need to see that Twilight Dream. He's got both available now, post-20 on this current patch. Here's the hook. See if he drops it down here. He's waiting for the perfect opportunity. Being so patient with it as HA2 is going in on Gondar. The removal here of Wiz from the fight as well, meaning no Aegis until the last second. Iceblock used here for Hyde, who still holds on to that Twilight Dream. There it is, and that is going to be the 4-man wipe, and that will be game over here for BlossoM. Long death timers, keeps down already, and they look to close the game.
What a great play from all the teammates, and especially Sign staying in strong together along with Fawcett right next to them. They were holding both supports and Vala together, so basically on the other side there was no damage, and that's going to be game going to Tempest.
Tempest takes game number 1 in pretty standard fashion when you compare how they drafted, how they played that one out, like EU did and like we saw in the mid-season brawl. So we'll likely have map choice. First ban was on the side of BlossoM. They're going to want to take that again here. I feel like the draft is really good for Vala protection. The Stitches pick's the only one that doesn't really quite fit in. Like, you know when you're in kindergarten, you have the pictures, like which one of these doesn't belong. Like the Stitches was definitely the one in this case. You can make arguments for it with the Gorge coming in, the hooks to remove these high mobility heroes. But the problem is they just couldn't never at least execute those kills. They never were able to have those follow-up Uther stuns to get those picks, so didn't work out. And it's a draft that I feel like works a lot better on more compact maps. It'll work better on Tomb, especially Infernal Shrines, where we normally saw these types of heroes being drafted, and Battlefield of Eternity would have been another opportunity to use that composition. On Sky Temple, they got out-rotated, out-macroed.
I think from both sides, they played well. BlossoM had their theme. Of course, it did not work perfectly, as you said, but for Tempest side, that was a very clean game. I can't really criticize for anything except for Lockdown overstepping a little bit, just one death. But of course, as a false step, maybe you can have one death. But other than that, like even Honkono on the Genji, he was at the last team fight, he was all the way onto the left. He was looking for that lethal going in strip strike to get the kill. He went across the map, across the screen, all the way to the right to get that finishing blow, to get that reset. And by that time, they were already winning the team fight, by the way, too.
I have to give credit to Gondar for his hook accuracy, though. I mean, he really hit some good hooks in that game. It didn't end up amounting to much, but he's shown yet again he's a very strong Stitches player, and now that Stitches is really high tier in the meta, and you know, we've seen him play other heroes very well. I think that he's continuing to show his skills, but this was a situation where the Stitches picked was not that there wasn't much synergy with the composition that they built. So we'll see if he plays it again later on this evening, or if the draft calls for something else specifically. Maybe they'll draft into the Anubrok first pick this time. As again, you normally always take first pick when you end up losing the first map. So Battlegrounds, as you mentioned, Spider was banned. Battlefield of Eternity banned as well. Right. So Infernal Shrines still available if they want to run that more Vala-esque draft like we saw already. Or if they want to change it up. Obviously, we've got maps like Towers of Doom, larger ones. So it looks like the map choice is ready. So we're going to jump into that in just a second. At least that's what I was just told.
Well, I want to see Infernal Shrines because Tempest is basically the only Korean team to actually use use Gul'dan or Kel'Thas on this map, and it is Infernal Shrines, picked by Tempest. So let's see if they actually... Lockdown was the one, usually on Niming, but especially on this map, and only on this map, they don't even pick Kerrigan. They used to play Kerrigan when Dami was on the team, but not anymore.